This production is brought to you by Red Brick Media. To see our full range of authentic Islamic audio-visual products, please visit our website at www.redbrickmedia.co.uk.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending immense greetings and salutations upon the final Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Inshallah, for those brothers who've come tonight to listen to some words about the lifestyle they may live or they may want to live, that even among some of us sometimes this lifestyle begins to glamorize and glitter in people's eyes, and all that glitters is not gold. The Quran tells us قُلْ لَا يَسْتَوِي الْخَبِيثُ وَالطَّيِّبُ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكَ كَثْرَةُ الْخَبِيثِ. So those substances which are pure, those things which are good, are not the same as those things which are filthy and corrupt. وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكَ كَثْرَةُ الْخَبِيثِ. Even though the impure substances, the impure life, the filthy life may dazzle you, may embezzle you, may take your senses away, but a person with some form or even minute element of Iman will begin to see straight through that and recognize that this is not the way for me. And thus tonight we want to talk about things that take you out of the fold of Al-Islam. There are many things ulama have collected, possibly some 400 in number, about things that nullify your faith, that classify you as a disbeliever. They then begin to condense them into some 10 major things that if a person gets involved in them, they can leave the fold of Islam. And some of these compilations done centuries ago. A person who dies committing shirk, a person gets involved in magic, a person who takes intermediaries towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person who goes against the Sharia or believes another way is practical and applicable above the Sharia, are just some that come to mind. But point number 10, written centuries ago, because sometimes we think that some of these works are for the people involved in academics. It doesn't really concern me. The scholarly debate, who's a Muslim, who's not a Muslim. But point number 10 is what we want to focus upon tonight. Al-i'radu an dinillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Turning away from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is also something that nullifies a person's faith. If a person intentionally turns away from learning the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doesn't want to learn, doesn't want to understand, then that person is treading upon a very, very dangerous path. Gives up praying, fasting, resembling himself as a Muslim, is traveling on a very, very dangerous path, and some may even conclude, not that we may necessarily hold that view, that this person has left the fold of Islam. Because we find numerous ayat inside the Quran, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Whoever turns away from my dhikr will have a severe punishment, will have a restricted life. That is the key ayah we're going to focus upon today. But the first essence is وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي. Whoever turns away from my remembrance, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise we find وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَأَنْسَاهُمْ أَنفُسَهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Don't become among those individuals who forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You forget Allah, then Allah will make you forget your own self. You do not know what you're doing on this planet. Because you forget Allah, Allah forgets you. And that's this main ayah inside Surah Taha, that whoever turns away from my dhikr, فَعِنَّهُ لَمَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ, that individual will have a wretched life. So there's various forms of turning away. You find those Muslims, firstly the intellectual individuals, who believe that we need to be intellectually spiritualized. The only way forward is for us to become academics. That's what they feel. You have these so-called thinkers amongst our Muslim society focusing upon extreme education. They think there's no need to pray, there's no need to fast, there's no need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By the use of my intellect, I'll excel and I'll go forward. The second group of individuals that we find is the average Muslim. Why should I come to the masjid? Why should I come to a dars? Why should I come to a halaqah? Why should I come to a reminder? Because the more I hear, the more possibly I may have to implement. So I just keep away. You know, these modern Muslims, we just like to lounge around in shisha bars and listen to nasheeds, sip coffees and think that they're revitalizing Islam, or wrapping PLO scarves around their clean shaven faces and taking footsteps and singing about Palestine, think they're going to liberate it. Is that what you think? You're going to liberate Palestine in that manner? Women chanting slogans, singing songs, waving in front of you, screaming and shouting behind you. We don't need such Muslims. Then we find a third type of Muslims, which is our average young individual, the average youth, the foot soldier, the man on the street. Because a large percentage of Muslims have said, we don't know what the Imam's talking about. I don't have a clue. I don't understand his language. I don't understand his rhetoric. I can't engage with him. In a Mori poll done, a large percentage of young Muslims said the Imam is totally clueless about our society. And that's what we want to turn around tonight, inshallah. That there's some Imams, we're not clueless, we're on the road just like you're on the road. But our way on the road is different from the road you're upon. That's the Quran mentions, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا بِالرَّسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ لِيُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ. We do not send any messenger except for with the language of his people. That's the first thing when you're preaching the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to understand the language of the people. The Prophet Muhammad had the ability to speak to Mala'ul Qawm, the elite people, and to come down and speak to the Bedouin Arab. Because sometimes we like to rub shoulders with delegates and celebrities and big people. But the average people on the street, the young youth, they feel that we've let them down. So tonight, inshallah, we haven't come to let you down, but to hopefully, inshallah, to deliver the message. وَلِكُلِّ قَوْمٍ هَادٍ. Every people has a warner. The Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah mentions, explain this ayah, that every person who comes to preach has to deliver the message to those people. Has to understand the thaqafa, the culture, the mindset, the psychological development, the social backdrop, what takes place to lead people to become like this. That why are so many Muslim youth turning away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Maybe they have that small excuse that no man came to me and gave me the right message. So that's what our intent is tonight, inshallah, to deliver the right message. That you may take it back and ponder over it. Because I know some of you men just think about bullets banging into you. Tonight we're going to bang a bullet bang into your heart, into your chest. That's what we come for today. That's the bullet we want to bang into your heart. That you can't shrug it off. They will come back and it'll curse you, it'll haunt you, and it'll prey upon you every single day when you go back on road, to make you think that what bullets am I taking in my daily life? What am I doing in my life? What's my purpose in life? أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا? Do you think we create you out of vanity, no purpose? That you just walk around, brawl about on the streets? That's designed for non-Muslims to behave in that manner. That's what the Quran mentions about them. ذَرْهُمْ يَأْكُلُوا وَيَتَمَتَّعُوا. Leave them alone to eat and drink like cattle, like beasts. That's the language the Quran uses about them. They're beasts, they're animals. They're ferocious, they're vicious. They have no mind, they have no real intellect. That's not how us Muslims should become. To begin to live a life like that, a thug lifestyle. What they talk about, the gangster lifestyle. What are the haram things that most Muslim youth are doing, that sometimes we begin to shy away from? The first thing that we find is alcohol. Clearly inside the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 5th chapter, verse number 1991. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, innamal khamr wal maisir wal ansab wal azlam rijsum min amali shaytan fajtanibuhu la'allakum tuflihun. إنما يريد الشيطان أن يوقع بينكم العداوة والبغضاء في الخمر والميسر ويصدكم عن ذكر الله وعن الصلاة فهل أنتم منتهون. Or you believe indeed in the drinking of alcohol, in gambling, the slaughtering upon the divine stones and the throwing of these arrows is the filthy handiwork of the devil. فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. Stay away from it if you want to be successful. Indeed, shaitan only wants to create animosity and hatred via the use of drinking and gambling to take you away from the dhikr of Allah. The greatest dhikr of Allah is the prayer. So will you not abstain? Has it not become unfortunately a common trend that Muslim youth, they drink alcohol, whatever the names may be, whiskey, brandy, rum, vodka, beers, ale, whatever it may be. Common practice that Muslims get drunk, get legless, can't find their way home, abuse other Muslims while they're making their way home. At least some people, when they used to drink in secrecy, drink in the privacy of their own homes. But now we find that people out in the open, behaving like disbelievers. But then some Muslims may say, well, you know, I don't drink alcohol. I take some mild substances. I smoke drugs. Tell me in the Quran, where Allah said in the Quran that cocaine, crack, smack, weed, skunk, marijuana, spliff, reefer, dope, white lady, coke, smoke, brown, Charlie, whatever name you want. People say to me, give it to me from the Quran and I'll give it up today in my life. Give me these words from the Quran, I'll give it up in my life. Because it doesn't exist in the Quran. That's what they're trying to say. Well, for your information, it does exist inside the Quran. The Quran mentions quite clearly, the verse that I mentioned, innamal khamr. Khamr isn't alcohol. That's a loose translation. The meaning of khamr according to Sharia is ma ghab al-aql. Whatever intoxicates you in your language, whatever rushes you, stones you, buzzes you, trips you, makes you feel good, raises you, is haram. Full stop. Sharia doesn't look at the names that you want to hear on the streets. The Sharia says that if it takes away your mind, it covers your mind, it shrouds your mind, takes away your senses, finish. End of story. Man wants to come to me and say to me, but Sheikh, you know, I don't take so much of this stuff. I only take a small spliff to keep me mellow, like Bob Marley used to take weed, keep me controlled and focused. Weed don't do no man no harm. Well, it creates schizophrenia. That's what it does, split personality. The people go and preach this. That's even the government, the Class of Drugs Act 1974, classified drugs in Class A, Class B, Class C. They can't make up their mind what to do with skunk and weed. And this professor had to resign himself.